of the CC caucus commitment and loyalty to the administration of the ruling party led by President Muhammadu Buhari. He urged the party to be focused and remain united so as to win the 2023 presidential election.
I believe that at the end of the day, Your Excellency will all the time continue to support our party. Recently, we have had difficulty because of misunderstanding between some of our members, and the party has been thrown into a temporary confusion. But thank God, it is over now. It is very clear that our party is back on track, that at the end of the day, in the next 2 weeks or so, our national convention will hold, and a new set of leaders will emerge who will take us to the destination of victory by the grace of God in 2023.
Now, the Nigerian Labour Congress NLC Northwest Zone has staged a peaceful protest to the Kaduna State House of Assembly over the passage of local government and legislative bills. The Labour Union says they had earlier staged a protest to the National Assembly to plead with them over the passage of a bill, but the Constitution requirement states that a two-thirds majority from the 36 state houses of assembly is needed for the bill to be passed into law. Speaking during the protest, the NLC chairman, Kano State Council Kabiru Ado says, because of the importance of the two bills to the people at the grassroots, there was a need for Nigerians to consider the bill, especially the legislature, who have the power to make it become a reality. While the Speaker of Kaduna State House of Assembly, who was represented by Right Honorable Mukhtar Hazo, assured NLC members of their blessing once the bill came to their table.
We were directed across the country and across the 6 zones of the country that we should stage this peaceful protest and solicit and appeal for the members of the House of Assembly for the quick passage as done by the national leadership. So here in the Northwest Zone, representing the 7 states, Kaduna State was chosen. So that is why all the 6 other leadership of NLC across the zone were here to stage a peaceful protest and solicit and appeal on behalf of the rest of the state that once this bill comes to the State Assembly, they should quickly pass it because of its benefit to the general populace, especially those at the rural areas.
We do, others copy. I'm assuring you, I believe you have discussed at length with Right Honorable Speaker yesterday and day before yesterday, as you said, and I believe he has already spoken out our minds to you. The bill that we are expecting to come for affirmation will receive Kaduna State House of Assembly positive blessing.
Now, the House of Representatives has urged the Federal Ministry of Education to liaise with relevant government agencies to ensure employment for first-class graduates of Nigerian institutions. A motion sponsored by Representative Chinedu Martins noted that Nigerian universities produce hundreds of first-class graduates annually at the end of every academic year. A great percentage of them find it difficult to secure employment and to contribute to national building. Our correspondent tells us more.
Over the years, there have been concerns about the growing rates at which employable first-class graduates in Nigeria are unable to secure jobs, thus forcing them to leave the country and become assets to other countries that offer employment. Representative Emeka Martins is concerned that the same job opportunities are not obtainable for first-class graduates in the ministries, departments, and agencies and parastatals who are, by virtue of their position as government agencies, saddled with the responsibilities of driving the country's economic and infrastructural development.
House further believes that the first-class graduates are mostly needed in all fields of human endeavor, especially in Nigeria, where they can contribute in their areas of competence, such as economic planning, manufacturing, small and medium-scale enterprise, engineering and infrastructure, etc.
State lawmakers, in their contribution, sought further clarification on the motion.
In the spirit of the Constitution, our Constitution said that nobody should be discriminated against. You see, if you make it a motion and the House have to compare that we should make people with first class get automatic job. Mr. Speaker, you are in Nigeria. That will be craze for first class. And it will be much better that we identify in which area of this first class are we talking about. Is it in the area of technology? Or is it that if I read Hausa, I become first class, I should just be given an automatic employment? I agree that somebody who has a first class must be one of the best brains within the place.
The issue of these points he raised, I also suffer from it. In another course, I got 74.5. To get 75 will have given me AA. Mathematically, can approximate down. That teacher, again, another teacher, denied me that summary, and before me, increased another person's mark by 5. So it is not always that the result that is out there is a true reflection of the knowledge.
Representative Martins was given a second chance to clear the air on the presumed controversial motion.
So how is the existing policy, if it's the same thing, how is the existing policy not pushing corruption, but this one is?
No, what I'm saying is that
only just say, I can understand the analogy of the DS. That could be error from your institution, but a lot of students go through a lot of hard work to end first class. And before I move this motion, Mr. Speaker, I made a lot of research from my constituency. I found out that a lot of first class graduates are unemployed. They are all over the street, roaming without employment. When you see a third class graduate who earns a lot of money under some parastatal, they are duly employed.
The House thereafter mandated its Committee on the Tertiary Education and Services and Labor Employment and Productivity to ensure compliance.
Now, still talking lawmaking, a bill for an act to provide for statutory regulations of peacekeeping operations by members of the Nigerian Armed Forces, the Nigerian Police, the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, and other security organizations killed second reading in the House of Representatives. The bill, sponsored by Representatives Wale Oke, seeks to, amongst other things, procure equipment and train personnel to partake in the peacekeeping mission, as well as to make Nigeria's foreign policy in peacekeeping operations to be in tandem with international best practices. Here's the report.
Nigeria has over the years had cause to participate in several peacekeeping operations in many countries all over the world. From the records, Nigeria has spent over $8 billion with over 1,200 soldiers and more than 200 police officers deployed in the operations. With the move to upgrade statutory regulations of peace operations, Nigeria will not only invest but earn foreign exchange.
Unlike in other democracies like Japan, like Korea, like Pakistan, like Bangladesh, like India, where we have statutes that regulate deployment of both personnel and equipment to United Nations, vis-a-vis refunds to the nation. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, it has been a source of foreign earnings to India, to Bangladesh. But in our own case, Mr. Speaker, we have no such provisions.
Lawmakers in their contribution commended the sponsor of the bill but disregarded on the aspect of the claims that there are no provisions guiding peacekeeping operations.
But I disagree with you, and it has to be put on record that the government of purpose that we run here under President Muhammadu Buhari must have had a lot of provisions in different forms. They may not have to be addressed as such, but I can't take that, yes, government has no provision whatsoever in the appropriation of the land to do with peacekeeping. We have so many subheads. We have so many provisions in the finances of the Nigerian armed forces, in the police and what have you. They may not necessarily have to be addressed as funds meant to address specifically foreign missions. This is a point that I would like you to take notice of, so that at the end you may not eventually mislead the House or mislead the public in that direction.
I may not have seen it captured in an act, but in the normal budgetary allocations, even this year, there are a certain amount of money we have allocated for peace operations. Yeah. And right now, as I speak, we have some badges. Some soldiers are some went to Gambia, and some are on their line to Sudan also. And it's those resources that is being released. But that border information can be forgotten. Secondly, and very importantly, Mr. Speaker, as important as this bill is, there is need for us to have a legislative brief before all of us here, a synopsis, so that we can be able to speak to the bill.
After much clarification, the bill was eventually passed through a voice vote.
Those in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Do you want me to repeat it? The ayes have it.
Now, ex-governor and chairman of Board of Directors of Central Bank of Nigeria, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, was on Thursday handed over the mantle of leadership by Willie Obiano as he became the 5th Democratic governor of Anambra State. The inauguration ceremony, which took place at the state government's house, Okwa, had the outgoing governor present among other dignitaries. Before Justice Oniche, the chief of judge of Anambra State, Soludo, took the oath of office earlier today. Governor Soludo, under the All Progressive Grand Alliance, defeated Valentine Oziegbo, among others, to clinch the position. When Newslive returns, the Nigerian Police Command in the Federal Capital Territory, in a joint operation with the military, has repelled a kidnap attempt and rescued the victim in Dobi Kwalita area of Gwagwalada Area Council. This and many more after this break. Do stay with us.
Hi, my name is Ikia Maton. Being an anchor has been a tremendous experience, from editing the news to reading the news. As an anchor, you have to be objective and impartial. Sometimes you have to put on a very indifferent look, a stoic character, such that you do not display your emotions. But then the stories that we tell, from politics to the economy to insecurity to education, also affect us. And as journalists, we're also affected by stories. From the teleprompter to the lights to the camera to the action to the reading of the news, it's all a synchronization of various activities at the same time. Sometimes you have to listen to feedback, sometimes you have to stop, sometimes you have to continue. Sometimes, there are technical hitches that we can never overlook, but then you have to come up with a strategy, you have to come up with your professionalism to ensure that the audience do not even know what is happening behind the scenes, and then you just have to carry on.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Newslive from our Abuja studios. Now, a recap of our top stories. House of Representatives seek automatic employment for first-class graduates. Professor Charles Soludo sworn in as Anambra Governor. Plus, President Volodymyr Zelensky urges Germany to tear down new Russian wall in Europe. Now, the fight against corruption is moved to the next level as Nigerian Senate passes a bill to amend the Money Laundering Act 2011. The bill was passed by the upper chamber after consideration by the Committee on Anti-Corruption and Financial Crimes. The reports.
The passage of the bill tagged Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022 followed the consideration of a report by the Committee on Anti-Corruption and Financial Crimes. Chairman of the committee, Senator Suleiman Abdulkwari, in his presentation, said the bill seeks to repeal the institutional and legal framework on money laundering prohibition in Nigeria. The provisions of the bill in Section 12 prohibits the opening of anonymous accounts in fictitious name and shell banks. In other words, banks with no physical presence in the country.
Its importance and relevance to the anti-corruption drive of the present administration, as well as the time-bound relevance of the FATF expectations. The enactment of this bill will also resolve the institutional issues regarding establishment of the Special Control Unit against Money Laundering, SCUMO, under the Federal Ministry of Trade and Investment, being implemented by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission.
The enactment of this bill will resolve the institutional issues regarding the establishment of special control units against money laundering under the Federal Ministry of Trade and Investment, being implemented by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission.
For an act to repeal the Money Laundering Prohibition Act 2011 as amended and enact the Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022 to provide comprehensive legal and institutional framework for the prevention and prohibition of money laundering in Nigeria, establish the Special Control Unit under the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, and for other related matters 2022, third reading taken, and the bill is hereby passed.
Moving forward, infamous Nigerian fraudster Ramon Abbas, popularly known as Hush Puppy, has received fresh charges as U.S. prosecutors submitted court documents showing that he committed fraud and laundering over $400,000 while in prison. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, through its agent Andrew Innocenti, has presented documents before the U.S. State District Court of California with fresh evidence indicting Hush Puppy of committing fraud and money laundering in the U.S. Federal Correctional Facility. According to the court documents, Hush Puppy defrauded his victims through economic impact payments debit cards fraudulently obtained from stolen data of U.S. citizens and residents. The document noted that Hush Puppy was able to perpetrate the fraud through his partner, identified simply as AJ. Now, the Kaduna State Command of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency says it has arrested a total of 111 drug traffickers between January and February 2022 in the state. The commander, Kaduna Command Umar Adoro, made this disclosure in Kaduna. Adoro said most of the arrested suspects fell within the age bracket of 11 to 30 years, adding that 34 suspects were arrested in January, among which 31 were males, while 3 were females, adding that a total of 295.680 kg drugs were also seized. He added that the agency also had discovered a new shisha-flavored pen whose flavors contained cannabis oil, usually used by teenagers. The commander also said 5 shops were sealed and 4 people were arrested for selling the pen with 9,932 kg of the exhibit seized. Now, the ongoing strike action declared by the Niger State chapter of the Nigerian Labour Congress has now turned into an indefinite action. This is also as students of Niger State extraction in institutions of higher learning across the country have threatened to embark on road and on street blockades over what they described as the government's neglect of the education sector. The NLC is taking the decisions and saying that the government disregarded the ongoing negotiation over the payment of salaries to staff of local governments when it paid out 70% instead of full salaries to workers in Rafi local government. Addressing a news conference, the president of the National Association of Niger State Students, Saliha Buhari, berated the state government for neglecting the education sector and especially the welfare of students and their teachers. The Nigerian Police Command in the Federal Capital Territory, in a joint operation with the military, has repelled a kidnap attempt and rescued the victim in Dobi Kwalita area of Gwagwalada Area Council, FCT. The police public relation officer in the FCT, DSP Josephine Ade, said this in a statement in Abuja. Ade disclosed that the aborted attack and rescue of the victim followed an intelligence report from the resident of Dobi Kwalita. She said the police personnel and the local vigilante were drafted swiftly to the scene. According to her, the suspect is currently at the State Criminal Investigation Department for further investigation, while efforts are being intensified to apprehend the fleeing members of the criminal syndicates. Now, a few days before the attack, over 30 Cameroonians fled the Manga village in Takum local government area of Taraba State after separatists burned their houses. 21 people are missing as a result of this attack. Here's the reports.
The only way to reach the village of Manga in Nigeria is by boat. On November 17, 2021, Cameroon's separatist fighters crossed into Nigeria and attacked. They killed 5 people, including the local chief. Shiban Takari has the regional government. This is the second time he travels out of Castina River since the attack.
Now this is Manga village in Takum local government, Taraba State of Nigeria.
Tikari has called for more security forces in Zaria. Last April, he already escaped death when local bandits opened fire on his convoy. Following the raid, the South declared state of Ambizonia. He says Nigeria faces a new threat at the eastern border.
The governor of Taraba State have met with the Mr. President in Abuja requesting the posting of Navy and Air Force. Navy will mount the water with the immigrations, the Army for the land, and then Air Force to fly across the boundary to checkmate the Amazonia.
Villagers says armed men opened fire in the early morning in Manga. Violence of the 4-hour attack is still visible.
Where the attackers came and met him, they shot him here dead. So this is where the house of the chief of Manga.
People scattered to the bush and hid in the nearby river. Abubakar, the chief's brother, watched the scene from the boat.
The Ambazonians came and started shooting. We never heard gun sounds like the ones we heard that day. I will never forget those sounds. Apparently, they even shot our children hiding in the water or behind trees, and then threw them in the water. That is what we saw that day. If not for the Navy and the immigration, I believe the people of Manga would have ceased to exist.
21 people are still missing. A few days before the attack, 30 Cameroonians fled here after separatists burned down their houses. This couple survived the attack. It has been 5 years since Anglophone separatists declared independence in Cameroon to speaking regions. Since then, conflicts has continued in the majority French-speaking countries. At least 1 million people here fled their home during the fighting in Anglophone Cameroon. According to the UN, Nigeria has recorded more than 70,000 refugees. Nigerian soldiers patrol the border, Takari's government says. The threat is great, not just for separatists, the UN says.
It takes the grace of God that we calm down. But if that thing happens again, it's going to be disastrous. Yes.
Nigerians battle conflict on many fronts. Armed gang is a terror in the northwest, while in the northeast, jihadists swelled a decade-long insurgency. The military is already overstretched. Takari's request for more support may have little result. Meanwhile, locals in the east will have to fend for themselves. Nwokacha Chinwe, Viewer Television, Abuja.
Now, more of the international scene. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov welcomes UAE Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation Sheikh Abdullah bin in Moscow today, according to the Russian Foreign Ministry. The leaders are expected to discuss friendly relations, strategic partners between the two countries. Now, during the meeting, Sheikh Abdullah mentioned that it is a great pleasure to hold talks about the different issues that combine Russia and the UAE. The leaders highlighted the challenges that affect the world, including Ukraine, Iraq, Yemen, Syria, and Lebanon. Following the talks, the Russia and Emirati leaders held a press conference where Lavrov denounced the attack of civilian facilities on UAE and Saudi Arabia by Houthi militia in Yemen.
إلى العراق إلى إيران ونعمل على تنويع مجالات الترابط.
Да, пройдут в конструктивной обстоятельной обстановке. Спасибо.
Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called on Germany in an emotional video addressing before the parliament to help destroy a new wall Russia was erecting in Europe. Appearing on the screen in his new, now trademark khaki T-shirt with dark rings under his eyes, Zelensky was welcomed by MPs in the Bundestag lower house with a standing ovation. In a speech steeped in historical imagery from Germany's triumph over its Cold War division, Zelensky addressed Chancellor Olaf directly with a call for greater solidarity with Ukraine. He, however, coupled his flattery with a strong rebuke of Berlin's years-long reluctance to stand up to Moscow and sever its strong energy and business ties with Russia.
108 дітей посеред Європи у нас у 22-му році.
Now still in Russia, rescuers search for survivors in the ruins of a theater ripped apart by a Russian airstrike in the besieged city of Mariupol, where a ferocious bombardment left dozens dead in a northern city over the past days. Authorities have said this. Now hundreds of civilians have been living in the ground columned theater in central Mariupol after their homes were destroyed in 3 weeks of fighting in the strategic port city. Nearly a day after the attack, there were no reports of deaths. With intense street fighting cutting off much of the city from the flow of information, there were also conflicting reports about whether survivors had emerged from the rubble. And that's all that we have for you on this Newslive tonight. But before we go, a recap of our top stories. House of Representatives seek automatic employment for first-class graduates. Professor Charles Soludo sworn in as Anambra Governor. Plus, President Volodymyr Zelensky urges Germany to tear down new Russian wall in Europe. Many thanks for watching. I am Dorcas Bello. Please stay tuned and enjoy the rest of our programs. Have a good night rest.